The official history of the Jonestown Massacre is one of a charismatic leader's descent into madness, culminating in a horrific act of mass murder-suicide. However, a persistent and dark counter-narrative has shadowed this tragedy for decades. This alternative theory suggests the People's Temple was not merely a cult, but a sinister front for a CIA mind control experiment. The story begins not in the jungle, but in the heartland of America with a man named James Warren "Jim" Jones. Born in 1931, Jones displayed a magnetic and persuasive personality from a very young age. In 1955, he founded the People's Temple in Indianapolis, a church that was notably progressive for its time. The temple was fully integrated, a radical stance in the deeply segregated reality of the 1950s. It quickly gained a reputation for its genuine social work, operating soup kitchens and shelters for the homeless. This public image of compassion and social justice attracted a dedicated and diverse following. In the mid-1960s, fearing a nuclear apocalypse, Jones moved his flock to Redwood Valley, California. The temple's influence expanded, establishing powerful bases in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Membership swelled into the thousands, drawn by Jones's fiery sermons, promising a utopian, egalitarian society. His followers provided a disciplined and seemingly endless army of volunteers for political campaigns. But beneath this veneer of progressive activism, a much darker reality was taking root. Jones's control over his followers was becoming absolute and terrifyingly invasive. He demanded their total devotion, systematically isolating them from the outside world. Members were coerced into donating their homes, savings and all worldly possessions to the temple. Public humiliation and brutal physical punishments became common tools of enforcement. Jones's own paranoia grew, fueled by drug abuse and an insatiable need for control. In 1974, the temple leased a vast tract of remote jungle in the South American nation of Guyana. This was to be the People's Temple Agricultural Project, a promised socialist paradise. Jones sold it as a sanctuary, a promised land far from the perceived corruption of the United States. Over the next few years, nearly 1,000 of his most loyal followers emigrated to the settlement. The settlement, carved from the dense jungle, was officially named Jonestown. Life in this supposed utopia was a grim departure from the dream that had been promised. Residents toiled for long, grueling hours in the fields, their labor exploited to build Jones's empire. Food was meager and rationed, a stark contrast to the abundance they had been led to expect. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, making Jonestown less of a sanctuary and more of a prison. Jones's voice, amplified by a camp-wide pass system, was a constant, inescapable presence. His paranoia reached fever pitch, leading to the creation of terrifying loyalty tests known as White Nights. During these drills, the community would rehearse for mass suicide, a chilling preparation for the end. Back in the United States, a group of concerned relatives began to organize, desperate for news. They alleged that their family members were being held in Guyana against their will. Their pleas caught the attention of California Congressman Leo J. Racine. He was accompanied by a delegation of journalists and some of the concerned relatives. After initial resistance, the delegation was finally allowed into Jonestown on November 17th. But as the visit wore on, the facade began to crack. A resident secretly passed a note to a journalist, a desperate plea for help. Soon, a small but significant number of residents openly asked to leave with the congressman. The atmosphere in the settlement grew thick with tension and unspoken threats. On November 18th, the delegation, and the defectors made their way to the nearby port Kaituma airstrip. As they were boarding the small planes, a tractor and trailer from Jonestown arrived. Armed guards from the temple opened fire on the unsuspecting group. Congressman Ryan, 3 journalists, and one of the defectors were murdered in the brutal attack. The attack was the point of no return, sealing the fate of everyone left in Jonestown. Back at the settlement, Jones announced that the final white night had come. He claimed that, because of the attack, the outside world would descend and destroy their paradise. A large metal vat was brought into the central pavilion, filled with a grape-flavored drink. The drink was laced with a deadly cocktail of cyanide, Valium, and other poisons. On a chilling audio recording, Jones can be heard urging his followers to commit revolutionary suicide. The children were the first to die, the poison squirted into their mouths with syringes. Some adults willingly drank the poison, believing they were making a revolutionary statement. Others resisted and were forcibly injected or held down by armed guards. In the end, 909 people lay dead, including over 300 children and infants. Jim Jones was found dead from a single gunshot wound to the head, a pistol lying nearby. The world reacted with utter shock and disbelief as the first reports emerged from the jungle. They argue it was mass murder, orchestrated by a tyrant and enforced by his loyal guards. But as the dust settled, unsettling questions and inconsistencies began to fuel conspiracy theories. The most prominent theory linked Jonestown to the CIA's notorious untold program. Ultra was a series of secret, illegal experiments on human subjects, designed to develop mind control techniques. Theorists proposed that Jonestown was a full-scale, operational field test for these techniques. They point to Jones's sophisticated methods of psychological manipulation as evidence. The use of drugs, sleep deprivation, and constant indoctrination mirrored known MKUltra methods. Suspicions were heightened by Jones's inexplicable political connections and apparent immunity for years. How could such a large-scale, abusive operation flourish without some form of official protection? Some researchers allege that key figures in and around the temple had ties to US intelligence. The presence of Dan Matrione, a US official linked to teaching torture techniques in South America, in Brazil at the same time as Jones, raised flags for some. Furthermore, the assassination of a US congressman on foreign soil was an unprecedented event. Conspiracy theorists argue that Ryan's investigation threatened to expose the entire experiment. They suggest his murder was not a panicked act by a cult, but a professional hit to ensure silence. Inconsistencies in the immediate aftermath also fueled suspicion. Initial body counts were far lower than the final tally of over 900. Early reports claimed most died of poison, but some autopsies and survivor accounts suggested many were shot or forcibly injected. The massive logistical effort to clean up the site was handled with military precision, with access tightly controlled. A huge cache of drugs, including sophisticated psychoactive substances, was found at the settlement. The temple's vast financial assets, estimated to be in the millions, largely vanished. Official investigations, including by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, found no credible evidence of CIA involvement. Declassified documents have, to date, revealed no direct link between the agency and the People's Temple. Most historians and cult experts maintain that the tragedy can be explained by the cult's internal dynamics. They argue that the psychological environment Jones created was potent enough to lead to the final outcome without outside interference. Yet, for the survivors and the skeptics, the official story leaves too many questions unanswered. Was Jim Jones a deranged pastor who led his flock to ruin? Or was he a pawn in a much larger, more terrifying game? An asset whose experiment went catastrophically wrong? The secret truth of Jonestown may have died in the jungle with its victims. The narrative of a CIA experiment persists, a haunting ghost in the official history. It serves as a dark reminder of a time when secret government programs were a proven reality. The theory reflects a deep-seated mistrust in official power structures. The Jonestown story forces us to question the very nature of belief and obedience. It explores the terrifying potential for a single, persuasive voice to overwhelm 1,000 individual minds. Victims of Jonestown were not nameless cultists. They were individuals seeking a better world. They were teachers, nurses, and families who believed in a promise of racial and social equality. Their dream was twisted into a nightmare by paranoia, control, and fear. Whether a cult or a covert experiment, the result was the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act before 9/11. The debate over the truth of Jonestown continues to this day, a testament to its enduring horror. The jungle holds its secrets, and the ghosts of Jonestown have never been fully laid to rest.